morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI TV on both Twitch and YouTube, and we're back for the Mini British GT Championship. Today marks the championship deciding round where the action plays out here at Brands Hatch, another circuit that has been a staple of British motorsport since its opening in the 1950s. Located in Kent, Brands Hatch is famed for its challenging layout with elevation changes, off-camber corners and precise racing line. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator for today's virtual racing action, with Callum Kerrigan and a commentary debut in the form of Matt Malcolm alongside me. Jesse Lee, of course, behind the cameras, bringing you all the action, and of course not forgetting our live stewards. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone on YouTube and Twitch. We are here, it's happening, the finale of the RCI Mini British GT. What a season it has been, and no other racetrack could end it. As you've just alluded to there, John, this track is punishing. The undulation, the off-camber corners, you're slightly offline and all of a sudden you're losing half a second to a full second here. This is going to be people at the absolute limit, but also wanting to try and maximise their potential in the last race of the season. This is one I am avidly looking forward to, and with a championship fight as well.
Yeah, so hello everyone. As I'm saying, I'm thrilled to be here with you today, and I'm thankful to the guys in the box for me being patient, as it's my first time here. And as you guys said, we've had an exciting championship with it being extremely close between the top three, ready to give it all on this epic of a track. Whether you're here just to support us at a particular driver, or you're just here for the thrill of the race, you're going to be in for a treat. So sit back and relax and enjoy this epic finale here on the Mini British GT.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic scenes coming to you tonight. Of course, we are a field of 20 tonight, so a little less than what we're used to here. Of course, over 50 drivers signed up initially for this season. And of course, with the hot weather in Europe, of course, comes dwindling numbers in the realm of sim racing as Benjamin Heilmann navigates round his teammate of Philip Brewster coming out of the penultimate corner. A good run to the line should, in theory, set the German driver up to go that little bit faster towards the pole position. Badowski answers back very briefly. Benjamin Heilmann with a 1:23.380. Badowski splitting the two RCI cars, and this man here, Andy Boardman, currently up as well in the Mustang. Again, not the quickest car in practice. We'll have to see how it goes in race trim. A good improvement there up into P4. And as you guys alluded to, of course, the championship fight looking very close at the front, of course. Christopher Streppen, 272.5 points to Andy Boardman's 272. Unfortunately, though, no Christopher Streppen tonight. So the next nearest man, Philip Brewster, could be the answer to Andy Boardman. So keep your eye on those two. It's certainly going to be a very thrilling race there, Callum.
Yeah, it is, and also an outside chance we have for Benjamin Heilmann, sitting about 30 points behind. But we know how strong the McLaren is at this track. It's often my best track because I'm a McLaren driver when it comes to actually driving an ACC. He's got to be the favourite for the win sitting in the Macca, and it's down to see how many points he can gain on the others. If Boardman and Brewster have a poor race here, he's got an outside chance.
No, definitely. I would definitely wouldn't say that Heilmann is going to be the one that might pull off the good advantage here. But I'm gonna have to, if it was up to me, I would definitely give Boardman a bit more credit than he has, because he just seems to always be able to pull something up the bag. And it's usually with that Ford GT, definitely get to take more advantage on the straights. Wouldn't you agree, Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, if Andy Boardman, of course, gets a good launch off the line, he could be the rolling roadblock that we've seen so many times this season. Of course, Heilmann and Boardman went toe-to-toe at Alton Park. It was a very similar vibe, again, at Snetterton, if memory serves me correctly. So it's going to be certainly interesting towards the front of the field. Stephen Van Kampen for Sim Race Sweden Esports comes out of the final corner. Towards the line he goes. A good improvement there up into P7. Just ahead of Martin Lawrence, but behind Mike Redford. Another driver looking relatively quick here tonight. And having raced against Redford here, he's a very capable driver once he gets his teeth into Brands Hatch. And of course, McLaren main driver, very suited to this track, as you mentioned earlier on, Callum. But again, towards the top, McLaren, Lamborghini, BMW, Ford, and Ferrari before we see a repeat once again of a manufacturer.
God, it's just the season that keeps giving already. Top five drivers, all different manufacturers. Looks like we're going to be in for an absolute corker here today as we're on board Theobald Roskam. Can he improve on this lap, I wonder, as he's about to come down onto the final? Is it going to be an improvement? No improvement for Roskam there. Maybe you've just messed it on the last corner. Obviously, so important. You're almost early apex there. You want to get on the power as early as possible. If Kenneth Dow comes across the line now, an improvement there, jumping a 4/10th improvement, a brilliant lap there, jumping up to P15. But going back to Mike Redford, he's had a bit of a disappointing season by his standard. Matt, you race with Mike Redford a lot. You're in his team for most endurance races. What's going through his head in a time like this, final race of the season? And he wants to show really what he is, and we all know he is capable of.
Yeah, definitely. So with Mike, it's very sometimes temperamental when it comes to how races go. Sometimes he can all lose it by lap one. Sometimes it might even be halfway through the race. But for the majority of the part, he just keeps his head down from it and he just tries to claw back any sort of time he can get from the rest of the competitors. Do I think he has a good shot at getting the top 5, top 10? I definitely do think so, but it all really depends on how well he can get around this track. Because of course, if you go off even just slightly here, it's enough to lose a lot of time here.
As we alluded to in the beginning of the broadcast, of course, the racing line, very important here at Brands Hatch. A lot of corners only really have kind of one line through them. It's very tricky to go too wide through a lot of them, and passing will be, really kind of costly, and you're really going to have to force the move or force the mistake on your rival driver just to make that space. As we see Philip Bracer there going straight on at the first corner, back to the pit lane. He will go. Just under 5 minutes to go. There's still plenty of time for laps here. Of course, only a 1 minute 23-ish time, should we say, from the start line to the finish line. And this man here, Marco Badowski, showed some excellent pace over the weekend in the Nürburgring 6-hour series with his teammate in the Team Bunky Racing BMW, and this time finds himself, of course, in the Lamborghini that we're very accustomed to seeing him in the Mini British GT Championship. Coming out of the final turn, up a little bit so far. Will it be enough for a small improvement? It'll at least propel himself towards Brace's time, give him that little bit of hope with a 1:23.650. And already towards the top, we may only have 20-something cars on the grid. 11 cars, Callum, all within a second of each other. And like we said about here, of course, the smallest of mistakes can cost you the biggest amounts of time, and having just a second between you all, it's going to be very costly indeed, as Richard Whittle makes a good gain there with a 1:24.377, propelling his Ferrari to just outside the top 10.
Yeah, it's looking like everyone is extremely close as we're on board now with Benjamin Holman, who is up, I believe, by a significant amount. He's going to cross the line. A colossal 3/10th improvement there, showcasing the McLaren's dominance. That might be him parked up, just calling it a day there. There's 1:23 flat. It's a phenomenal lap as we go now onto Marco Badowski, absolutely flying in the Lambo today. The Lambos have been doing really well off the back half of this season. He's going to be chasing more, hopefully to start to P2 and pipping Philip Brestra off that front row. One thing we haven't mentioned is the pit requirements today. We've got an hour-long race, one mandatory pit stop with a 25-second refueling time. We know this track is hard to overtake. Strategy could be the key here. Getting that undercut or holding up for that overcut could be absolutely essential. Marco Badowski did not improve as we ride on board with Tom Shipson. But Matt, you were on the earlier races of this season. If you were racing here today, what strategy would you pick here, knowing how difficult it is to overtake at Brands Hatch?
Yeah, it's always difficult to try and pick out what sort of strategy is best. I mean, if you go, you can potentially just take the fuel and take the extra 5 seconds, but it could hurt you further down in the race. As you normally go through towards the end of your stint, the tires are going to let go and you might slip off the track, which then again could cost you a lot of time. So it all really sort of depends on whether or not you've got a car that can take the tires all the way to the end, or you want to just go off with flat out pace. But again, it all sort of depends. As you can see, which is shipped in there, it's going to cost a lot of time going through that grass patch if you were going through a race stint. And
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. So it's very crucial. As we said, boys, the strategy again could play a key part in today's race. Of course, one mandatory stop, of course, with a litre of fuel being added, 25-second minimum refueling time. So tyres only costing the additional 5 seconds as the camera tries to catch up there with Trevor Byford in the RPMS Simsport car. He's currently down in P16, just ahead of Keith Whittle, just behind Gallower in the 73, and not far behind Dow and Mulder as well. So Trevor Byford could be on for a good improvement as he navigates round the last corner, sending himself towards the line, but lost all the time in the run out of the last corner. And that is exactly what we're talking about when we say, of course, you need to get your lines precise. As he comes across the line, parks it. That will be, of course, him done for the session. Kenneth Dow also in the pit lane. He'll seek no further improvement. Grim Lilith yet to set a valid lap, been in the pits most of the session, I believe. And also Les Stevenson. Callum, of course, you raced with Les over the weekend. Any mention of not qualifying for tonight's event? Is he doing the old last to first challenge attempt?
I'd probably say he's protesting against me for getting a few too many stop-go 30s in the race over the weekend, John. So I'm going to take that as a personal attack on myself. To be honest, I have no idea why Les hasn't pitted yet. I know he's not a big fan of Brands, but I didn't realise it was this much distaste that he doesn't even want to do qualifying, as I believe Philip Brechter is about to improve on his lap. Oh, he improves, but it's still just shy of Holman, but he's got enough time for one last lap to see if he can put it together. It's going to be the last lap from Badowski. Does he improve? He does. He gets onto P3. A wonderful improvement and the best qualifying of the season for Badowski. One thing we didn't see, John, and what I'm going to throw to you, Matt, you've called it. Redford is on fire. He's currently sitting in P5. He fancies this.
Yeah, definitely. It just seems like this is one of his favorite tracks of the actual season, and I just know he's just going to be able to push up onto it. You see Martin Lawrence coming around here as well. Seems to be holding the line well as he goes through. Is he going able to improve his time? Yes, he does, but not by much. Just less than half a tenth, which is not going to be able to push him up anymore. As we go through to Jano Manso, going through to the Audi, currently even, so all depends on going through the final corner, whether or not he's going to get an extra time. But he's going through around that corner, he's just losing that time just a little bit, and he's lost entirely. He's in the barrier. Oh, it's always a bit of a shame when you go through that bit, isn't it? Because like when you go through that part, as soon as you catch your wheel onto it, especially on low TC, as we go through Roscam, is he going to improve? Yes, he is. Very tiny bit. 1/1000th of a second.
Small improvement there from the about Roscam. And just as you said there, Matt, of course, dipping a wheel as you come through Clark Curve, it really upsets the car as Benjamin Hellman comes through for a final flex across the field and improves on his final lap just to push him that little bit more ahead of Philip Brechter. And of course, the standings on your screen at the moment. Benjamin Harmon, of course, towards the top, fastest across all three sectors. That's a bit of a rarity we see in ACC now. Of course, his teammate shares the front row alongside him. Badowski, Lawrence, Redford, Boardman, Van Kampen, Shipston, Roscam and Manzo round out your top 10. Some very competitive drivers in the field, going to get mixed up with each other, I am sure. Of course, Whittle, Vanderlinde, Mulder, Dow, Gallower, Byford and Whittle, and Berry, all with valid laps. Grim Lilith, no valid lap. Across Les Stevenson and Martin Foster, a very late joiner, just about managed to make the field. And of course, we do have a very long list of championship standings coming your way, queued up in the wings. As we spoke about earlier on, it is, of course, a very competitive season here with the Mini British GT season. Of course, we've had a mix of sprint races, endurance races. We've had a flyaway race before coming back to the land of Blighty for, of course, more of the double-header sprint races and the 1 hour events as well. But this is how it stands coming into the final round. You can see how close it is, of course, at the top. Christopher Streppen, 272.5 points, although unfortunately not with us tonight. So Andy Boardman, all eyes on him, and Philip Brechter as they go toe-to-toe into Paddock Hill in just a moment's time. Benjamin Harmon, the bit of the outsider at the moment. Could he throw a spanner in the works at the moment as well? Will we see any team orders between Harman and Bridgester? Tom Shipston, Martin Lawrence, Emo Plate, Yao Manzo, Marco Badowski, and Grim Lilith all round out your top 10. And even towards the back end of the top 10, it's still very close on points. Carlos Calatayud, fantastic start to the season, but dwindled towards the latter half on 125 points. Ted Edwards, currently in the YouTube chat. Welcome on in, Ted. 112 points. Just 2 points ahead of Matt Stevens. Both drivers, again, not here tonight. Richard Phillips, Bruno Teixeira, and Mike Redford. That's where we find him down in P16. He's going to look for a good haul of points to send him up the scoreboard. Nicole Fox, Stephen Van Kampen, Richard Withel, and Les Stevenson all round out your top 20 in Pro. We've got quite a few drivers to get through here tonight, so we'll speed on through. Theobald Roskam, Kenneth Down, Kevin Boss, all looking very close. Nicholas Gallower just behind those guys as well. Martin Foster, a point between Gallower and Foster. Of course, both drivers on the server tonight. Ibiza Racer ahead of Ollie Mulder. That's the biggest jump down in points, 47.5 to 23. So Mulder's going to see if he can take honours away from Ibiza Racer. Keith Withel and Chris van der Linde, just a point separates them. And 5 points back, we see Trevor Byford on 10.5 points. And that will round out your top 30 before we come on to the second page, the third page even, with Ferrelli and Sam Berry, 2 late signups. Ferrelli not currently on the server that I've seen, but Berry is definitely with us tonight, so seeing how many points they can score. And of course, everybody else with a dash next to their name has signed out and will take no further part in the championship. And I think we had over 50 signups in the cards, as we see lots of very familiar names. Even hit 60 at one point in this championship. Did we hit over 60? We did. 61 drivers, and that was a fantastic number to achieve. 49 actually started from round 1, I believe. Just over 40 drivers on the server. It was absolute chaos at Alton Park. It was brilliant. Of course, the RCI calendar this week looking a little bit skinny, unfortunately. Just us here on RCI TV. However, of course, on Saturday last week, it was a double header with, of course, the Nürburgring 6 Hours Part 2, which, of course, took place. GT3 nearly on pace with myself and Tom Pottage winning overall on Angela Scotti, and their solo attempt second on the GT3 field is a big achievement there. And Team Monkey Racing coming all the way from the back to the bottom step of the podium. Again, a fantastic achievement from those guys. Marco Badowski was part of that crew as well. Of course, RCI Esports Blue taking the top step from Race Ventura and a solo effort of Connection Lost Racing in GT4, and it was a solo TCX effort in the form of VXRP with Callum Kerrigan and Les Stevenson, surviving just about 6 hours, should we say, Callum?
Yes, surviving, sadly, purely due to my incompetence. Les did a fantastic job and had to put up with me being, well, me is the best way I could put it, as it is now session beginning. We're about to start our formation lap for the finale of the mini British GT. I seem to be the one that forced this almost every single race, so I do want a prediction out of everyone. I'm gonna start mine early and say a Harman win, just for the easy victory here today after a poor race on Saturday. Malcolm, what's your bet for today's race?
You gotta give it to Harman. I think definitely with how dominant he's been with the qualifying and with how strong the McLaren is on this track, you just gonna have to give it to him. It's almost like Verstappen last week with the Aston. Would you agree, Dalton?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, I called the Boardman race 2 the other week at Snetterton. That was pretty impressive, but I'm gonna have to agree. I think Heilman has enough pace. I think Bridgester will kind of act as a rear gunner and fend off the charging bull that is, of course, Marco Badowski in that Lamborghini, the number 29, just to the right of your screen, just out of shot there. Of course, not forgetting Martin Lawrence, the Bentley master, should we say, down in P4. And of course, this man here, Mike Redford. I wouldn't discount this man. Again, ahead of Andy Boardman. Something to be aware of. Of course, Boardman is going to have to make up as many places as he can to kind of minimize the damage towards his championship contention. So it's going to be a very interesting race indeed. Of course, not forgetting Tom Shipston just behind these guys as well. Another equally quick driver when the mood suits him. So again, lots of big names in the field, and of course, just about to get ready here. Track temperature, of course, 24, 21 degrees in the air, and track status currently fast. So the race will get forever quicker. So again, something to bear in mind on your tyre pressures. Of course, loading up the Pirelli more is going to generate more pressure as soon as that track begins to rubber in that little bit more. So come the halfway point, your pressures may be slightly off. So again, drivers are going to have to think about it. Do I want to under pressure the tyres? Do I want to over pressure the tyres? And of course, Grim Lilith and Les Stevenson at the back of the field, ready to do the old last the first challenge. I wonder if there's any bets going on in the Monday gang chat. Of course, RCI focusing on a big community effort. Monday nights, of course, we do host a voice call as well, so lots of drivers getting involved in that one. Just tonight, though, Grim and Les in there, so they'll be chatting amongst themselves as drivers are now 2 by 2, ready to get underway once again for the Mini British GT Championship for the final time here on RCI TV. Lots of kind of edging from drivers trying to get themselves positioned perfectly for that launch towards Paddock Hill. Of course, it's the last of the late breakers, the outside line. Very tricky to get something accomplished there. And as we wait for the gantry to go green, everybody single file here coming out of their trains now, jostling for position towards Paddock Hill they go. Heilmann squeezes pressure a little bit to the outside. The door opens underneath Martin Lawrence, and Mike Redford sees the chance and takes full advantage of that. Badowski going defensive, senses a little bit of a run maybe from the McLaren. Martin Lawrence going the long way round, and there's calamity at the top of the hill into Druids. We've got a Ferrari round there. I think that's possibly Galloway, maybe Foster or Byford in the second of the RPMS McLarens. But meanwhile, towards the front, Mike Redford looking very racy towards the back of Martin Lawrence, tucking in the wake of the Bentley as they come out of Surtees, down towards Pilgrim's Drop, and of course up Hawthorne Hill. Again, it's a good place to get a passing move going if you can get the run out of Surtees. You've almost got to set it up before the straight even begins, and Andy Boorman's Mustang looking very quick as they head down into Westfield Bend. Again, tight line prevails here, getting the better run off the corner, down Dinglesdale, up towards Sheen Curve. Again, very interesting place to get track limits warnings. That's something we've not touched on yet. Drivers being too aggressive on the inside curb can really upset the car and soon pick up those warnings as we head through, of course, Stirling's down towards Clearways in the final corner of Clark Curve. Everybody relatively spaced out at the moment. A couple of drivers, of course, finding each other through Druids at the typical pinch point, but other than that, boys, it looks like a relatively clean start. Once again, clutching onto the desk, touch wood, commentator's curse. Benjamin Heilmann out front, Philip Bridgester chasing him down, and Marco Badowski still within earshot on the podium.
Oh, John, we know how powerful your commentator curse is. I'm quite fearful of what you've just said.
It's horrible, isn't it?
I'm very fearful, but round of applause to every driver. We have had clean starts all throughout the season. It is line of stone for the top 6, top 7, and it is now all to play for on the racetrack as we're about to jump onto a replay to see what happened at the back of the field here. As they're all bunching up into Druids, it looks like someone's just taken to the grass. Was it Byford taken to the grass there, missing his braking point and collecting Galloway in the process. We did see there on lap 1, he's held back, waited for Galloway to come past, which is the respectable thing to do as you run on board with Van der Linde getting a bit pacey here, and Richard Whittle trying to go around the outside at Hawthorne would be a very daring move, and he's now into Dinglesdale trying to make the moves around the outside. Brave indeed. These are all blind corners, so drivers can barely see what they're going. It's a steering input and hope that you've picked the right line onto the racetrack and going way wide onto the exit of the Stirlings, which can cost you a mammoth amount of lap time as we come into Clark. Riding on board with Grim Lilith, who's already made up some places. He may make another one here on Ollie Mulder as he makes a mistake, tucks into the slipstream. He's going to go around the outside of Paddock Hill Bend, but the legs on the Aston keep Mulder out of trouble. What a start to the race. 56 minutes to go to crown the winner of the Mini British GT.
Yeah, it certainly is. As we see Van Kempen going on, chasing down the Ferrari, we should see whether or not he'll be able to get that line, so we can able to get the straight line speed to pass through the Ferrari. But It all really sort of depends on his exit, which it looks like he doesn't able to gain on him yet through to Shipston. But as we go towards Andy Bournemouth, he's still trying to chase down Mike Redford there. He's still in his rear bumper, so anything can still be at play. So it really all sort of depends how well he can get that Ford to go through those corners. Because with the Ford GT, it's always a little bit on the squirrely side when it comes to his TC. So it all really sort of depends, again, how he goes through those corners. And he's still going through the rear bumper, going through the clearways, and going through Clark Curve in a second. Is he able to go? He goes a little bit more opportunistic on the braking point, going through Brabham Straight. Does it give him a better chance on the straight? No, it doesn't seem to look like it going that way. Hopefully, as we go through towards the Paddock Hill Bend, he can able to find an opportunity to go into the Pilgrim's Horizon to Druids. As you can see, he goes off towards the track, so that's going to cost him a lot more time, and he's a bit under threat to Shipston as with car number 60 going behind him.
Yeah, of course, as you alluded to there, Matt, the Mustang, not the kind of best car, should we say, in GT3 terms of cornering. Of course, quite slippy in the aero setup and the TC on that car as well. It's much more of a kind of straight line machine. Of course, we've got some good straights here at Brands Hatch. We've, of course, got through Clark Curve down the Brabham Straight. Of course, as you said, Pilgrim's Drop as well, where we are now heading towards Hawthorne Hill to try and make up time on that McLaren. But the majority of Brands Hatch is corners, and of course we know the McLaren, a very good car on the aero, generates a lot of downforce, and it's, you know, lots of slow to kind of medium speed corners here, a few high speeds chucked in for good measure as well. And as you mentioned, Tom Shipston in the number 60 RPMS Ferrari could be brought into this fight as well. If Boardman, of course, doesn't get his skates on, he could see himself losing another position. But Richard Whittle glued onto the back of Yao Manzo, kind of from one RPMS car to another. Of course, Whittle's kind of fresh out of the Nürburgring event over the weekend. Of course, driving the BMW M4, having to adapt to, or at least Richard Whittle, adapt to a different machine in the terms of the Ferrari. Across the line he goes, of course, not too far off his all-time best there. So looking very consistent behind Yao Manzo. Of course, dirty air will be something that could be affecting drivers at the moment. So everybody just sizing each other up at the moment, trying to figure out where their strengths and weaknesses lie. But strong contender at the moment, Benjamin Heilmann, 1.3 seconds to the good already on Philip Brewster, and Brewster also pulled out a bit of a gap to Badowski, 1.6 seconds to the good on that. Martin Lawrence 1.3, and Mike Redford finds himself 1.2 seconds down as well. So lots of gaps forming in the top. It kind of turns into a bit of a hot lap session at the moment, until of course we get down to the nitty gritty of the pit stops, where drivers of course start going for the undercut, the overcut, you know, pitting later. Some drivers may be more well rehearsed in pit lane. Philip Bridgester already spotted doing some practice runs earlier on, seeing where he could push the pit limiter the latest. And Callum, just want to touch on Trevor Byford. The stewards look like they're playing catch up already from the lap 1 incident. Have you got anything from the stewards chat at all?
We do indeed. I was just about to touch on to that, John. We do have a steward penalty coming through, which I believe are going on board now with Trevor Byford. As you see, missed the braking point, tried to dive to the grass. That's not going to help your braking at all. Collects Galloway in the process, but we did see him pull over, do the right thing. As you can see, he's got 3.9 seconds to Nicholas Galloway, and now 5-second penalties to serve within the pits of the RPMS Sim Sport car. John, you said it earlier on, well, just shortly, you mentioned RPMS. I instantly got stared. I got a bit of nostalgia. Is this going to be the end of the RPMS meme, the Randy Pleasemore soup car, or is this something that's going to live on for seasons to come? I'd like to hear from yourself as we're riding on board with Richard Riffle, who is attacking that Audi of the RPMS Sim Sport car. Not a place you want. You don't want pressure here at Brands. You want just your own space to get down to nail these corners. Everything is blind, everything's so precise. The last thing you want is a Ferrari barreling down your rear view mirror. Something that your friend Mike Redford is doing in abundance with Andy Boardman. The last thing you want to see is a GT3 Mustang in your rear view mirrors, but it seems to have gapped him 1.2 seconds now. Maybe the space Redford needs to go chase Martin Lawrence.
I'm gonna ask it. I don't think it was. I don't think it's giving the end of the memes. Isn't that what RPMS stands for?
Randy, please, more soup.
Yeah, exactly. At least that's how I'll always remember that team. At least a little bit over that. But yes, it seems like Mike is just seems to be holding on against Boardman and still keeps a solid gap. Does it look like the Keith Whiffles have contact here? Let's go have a look onto the replay here. It's a little bit of opportunity, a little bit of a tap going through that dive, but it's a little bit of a contact to the rear quarter panel, but it seems to be no, and doesn't affect him either way. So very little minor contact, no time loss. Say going through Whitehall, he's still going around quite well. And if we go over to P12 of Mulder, you can see he's trying to chase down with the 4GT of Vanderlen. They try to go around the outside, but he keeps the inside line strong. As he goes through to the next couple of corners, we'll see how he's able to react with the cars of the train that is behind him.
Yeah, train barreling down on Ollie Mulder. He's going to have his mirrors full of Van der Linde, who equally has their mirrors full of Grim Lilith and Les Stevenson and Kenneth Dow, all forming this wonderful, colourful train as they head around Stirling's down towards Clearways, of course. Ahead, Whittle and Manzo also duking it out again. They could work together quite smartly here, knowing that Mulder could be potentially holding up the cars behind. Again, there's no international signal for I want to work with you, as I found out during a Monza race, but certainly Richard Whittle could be doing such a thing with Yao Manzo at the moment. He's not really lunging, not going for any kind of dart out of the racing line, staying, you know, in kind of single file with Manzo in the 222 as Grim Lilith goes wide at the top of Druids. That's allowed Les Stevenson up the inside. Let's have a look what happened here. Grim, big slide through Paddock Hill, big loss of momentum. Dow in the background goes wide. Les Stevenson about the only driver that gets a normal run, and then it looks like Grim maybe gifted Les the position. Maybe thinks Les could do more in terms of pace and maybe tow that Audi around, as Grim is now under pressure from Kenneth Dow behind in the number 420. Down Pilgrim's Drops they go up towards Hawthorne Hill. To the inside goes Dow, side by side. There's contact with Dow. Very well held, although the snapback on the Ferrari. Grim Lilith advertising the rally livery quite well there on the Audi R8, and Kenneth Dow gets back underway. Galloway comes around the corner. With him, of course, brings Whittle and Berry as well. Side by side here into Hawthorne Hill. There's a little bit of a curb touch, and I think that was just enough to upset the Ferrari aero balance at that time. Callum, of course, as you go up through Hawthorne Hill, the car is loaded up quite heavily on the aero. It's quite fast. Again, flicks it in. Of course, the room was almost given. Maybe a little bit more generous could have been Grim Lilith on the space, but cars came together. Of course, we'll leave that one up to the stewards to decide, and I'm sure they'll make a decision very shortly as we catch another race replay here. This is between Whittle and Berry. This is coming down towards Dingle Dell. That's a big amount of contact between Berry and Whittle. That just looked like two drivers not particularly aware of maybe what the other was doing, and 2 into 1 certainly doesn't go as we catch another race replay here from the helicam. It looked like Whittle was just a little bit slower coming through, of course, Sheen Curve. Sam Berry saw the gap, went for said gap, and Whittle kind of wandered a little bit, Callum. That just looked like maybe Whittle was unaware of how much momentum he had lost due to his kind of half spin.
Yeah, it looked like both of those incidents to me, just looking quickly as we did on the replays, just seemed like very, very minor touches on Whittle's side. He may have thought the Porsche was just about going to clear him and he could slot behind, he just mistimed it. And with Grim, maybe he should have left... Maybe should have left the Ferrari a touch more safe. I'm already forgetting the drivers. I'm getting a bit senile here. Just as we jump on board, it looks like Les Stevenson has got past Chris Van der Linde already into P13. Van der Linde is not going to be too happy with that. He's been on the back of Mulder trying to get past him, and then Les has probably capitalised, and he's going to be frustrated, wanting to get that place back. But as we theorise with Grim letting Les through, maybe they're thinking, right, we know the McLaren's quick here, let's utilise that, let's follow the McLaren, wait for them to make the moves and try to capitalise that. Once you see a McLaren go up the inside of Druids, you know, as you see time and time again in things like British touring cars and lower level sort of smaller levels of motorsport, you could just slot straight up there and try and get the position as well. So maybe that's what people are thinking going into here. Is we've got Tom Shipston on the back of Andy Boardman, probably music to Redford's ears, seeing that Boardman's got some defending to do, giving him the space to run his race. But this Ferrari is looking quick.
Mike goes off. Mike goes off.
I said the commentator curse.
You had to ruin it.
I bad. Boardman's off. There's carnage.
Oh no!
What's going on?
It's Shipson goes to the rear of Redford's car, ruining the opportunity for him to keep as many places as he can. But he just, as soon as Shipson tried to go around, he just had too much momentum going around that corner and just went right into the back of Redford. I wonder if we're going to be able to get a full replay of that incident, because it's just, there's so much that happened in that short space of time. You can see there, you got Foreman goes off, then you got the Ford GT going off and tapping Shipson, probably giving too much momentum to hitting Redford at the rear. So we wondering what the stewards are going to say about that whole incident as a whole.
Well, on the stewards, they've been in our comms chat saying that they want things to happen. They've got their hands full now, haven't they, Matt?
Yeah, it looks like Shipson just barely avoids it. I just wonder if he just made a tap onto the car itself.
Certainly a case of be careful what you wish for. I would say from the stewards there, absolute chaos unfolding towards the latter half of the last lap. Of course, through Sterling's, everybody getting very messy, very into each other, as we see a little bit of a touch here through Druids between Boardman and Van Kampen, trying to go the long way around. Of course, very tricky to do such a thing at Druids, but certainly Van Kampen, I would say, the bigger improver during that. No, it wasn't Van Kampen, was it? It must have been Van der Linde on the Mustang. Two very similarly liveried cars, but either way, the white Mustang absolutely planting the throttle around the outside of the Chaos, and of course almost did spear Tom Shipston into the pile as well. So certainly going to be an interesting one for stewards to dissect. I'm probably glad I'm not on that team tonight, and we have the easy job in the commentary booth of briefly picking over incidents before moving on to, of course, the action. Richard Whittle, a little bit of an outbreak there into Druids. That's going to allow Ollie Mulder to close the gap. Of course, with him brings Les Stevenson just ahead. Yao Manzo has began to catch the back of the number 96 Porsche. Of course, the 992 from experience chews through rear tyres quite heavily here at Brands Hatch. Of course, lots of kind of high-load corners that really do take a beating across that rear axle, with the flat six engine, of course, mounted over it. Big wing pushing the Pirellis into the floor as well. Certainly does tend to chew them up. So Roscan possibly electing to take a set of tyres when the pit window, of course, comes about for himself, which has been open for 2 minutes. Towards the top of your screen, of course, the timer in the white box signifies how long drivers have to come down the lane to make their mandatory stop. And of course, over to the left on the timing tower, the orange box with the number 1 signifies that drivers have to do a mandatory stop. And of course, once they have done and met the requirements, that box will then turn green. So the order will be shuffled in the next few minutes or so as drivers begin to come down the pit lane. And of course, it's that tricky decision, isn't it, Callum? When do you go? Do you try and match your rival to be faster through the pit stop, or do you try and go for the overcut or the undercut? Of course, pit a little bit earlier or a little bit later. And again, if you're in trains such as this, of course, Les Stevenson latching onto the back of Mulder. Again, 3 or 4 cars ahead. This could be costing Les time. Of course, if he comes down the pit lane, he may come out of the back of the field, but into clean air, and that's the crucial thing, to drill in those lap times and really get things underway, as Mike Redford, of course, on the recovery drive just in the back is shot there. Callum, Jesse's asking a question about the livery, something about the face on the back end of Les's car. Care to elaborate?
Oh, with absolute pleasure, John. As is a staple on all of Les's liveries, you often see a Roca Poker and a picture of his face with shaving cream. All season long, Jesse has been trying to locate this on the McLaren, and I think we're about to get a wonder. Look, oh my God, that's terrifying. I'm the one that made this livery, and that is absolutely terrifying looking at. Oh, Jesse, take it away, take it away. But going back to your point, John, about pitting, I would agree. If I was in a McLaren right now and I'm stuck behind a train, this is looking like a 5-man train here, all fighting for P7 as Yao Manso and Richard Whittle have been battling, have been catching up with that Porsche. You've got to look for a pit stop here. One of them have to blink early as we've got Whittle off the track making a mistake at Paddock Hill. Is Les going to capitalise off sort of the reaction that Mulder have? He's trying to go on the outside of Druids, but that is a costly mistake there for Richard Whittle as Les is going to go side by side into the Graham Hill. There was barely any space there. £5 no difference, and they're still side by side. Going into 30s, one of the hardest corners, or the hardest corner on the track. It looks like Les is going to get it done, but I think I thought the Aston would have the legs. He's going to tuck in the slipstream, try to make a move on the inside. Les has got to defend the inside here if he wants to keep the position, but it looks like the McLaren had the legs. Redford is now on the back of these guys, ready to capitalise. What a fight for P9.
Oh, it certainly is. As we go through, continue onwards towards the Dingledale and then to Sheeran, we'll be to find out, was that a slight contact between the Ferrari and the Ford? As they go round through the corners. As they go through towards the clearway straight. Van der Linde takes a massive slide going through to clearways. That's going to give Grim Lilith a chance to capitalise and try and gain on that position. We go around towards the side on here. Yep, he just loses it too much through the slide that the Ford GT just has that really bad characteristic for. As you see, Van der Linde's trying to get the massive advantage on the straight here, trying to get round on the outside line, but he's just able to get round it. Can he get through towards Druids? Is he trying to try and outbrake him? No, he tries to keep along the outside line as Grim Lilith tries to seek an opportunity on the inside line as they go through the corners here. You can see that Grim Lilith is trying to take a full advantage, trying to get a little bit off the track and try and get a little bit more advantage through the speed as they go around almost side by side with Grim Lilith still on the rear bumper as they go through the Pilgrim's Drop. As they see who's going to get on ahead. Is it going to be the Ford or is it going to be the Audi? Who do you think is going to get through the end of the lap then?
Grim's looking pretty racy behind the Mustang, but of course the grunt of the V8 engine just about keeping Chris van der Linde in the fight. Stewards have made a decision earlier on. Of course, we caught the incident between the 129 of Sam Berry and the 157 of Keith Whittle. Lap 8, turn 7. They've deemed it a 10-second penalty for Keith Whittle, of course, for avoidable contact, as we saw a little slide there and Keith just kind of pulling over to the left, and suddenly there's a Porsche alongside, both cars meeting the wall. Sam gets back underway, but I think Keith Whittle has called it a day, been sat in the pit box for a considerable amount of time so far. From one Whittle to another, though, Richard Whittle, the third car on the field, I believe, to pit. Mike Redford has already found his way in and out of pit lane, along with Galloway as well on the number 73. So those guys kind of propelling themselves almost into clear air. I mean, Galloway in no man's land at the moment. And of course, Redford just behind the 129, as we have missed a lead change in and amongst all the chaos here tonight. Philip Bridgester to the front of the field. Heilmann's clearly made a mistake somewhere, Callum, because I don't think Heilmann would have given that up so easily. Especially with, of course, the championship fight on at the moment. Of course, Bridgester is the next kind of highest car up, although Heilmann still has contention. Again, if he has a clear run towards the line, he could almost be the outsider in the championship fight. So something's definitely happened here, and I'd be curious to know what exactly, as Jesse tries to figure it out. Heilmann invalid last lap, so maybe just ran wide somewhere, Callum, maybe a half lazy spin on the grass and just cost himself a couple of seconds.
Oh, John, it's nice to know that these guys are human, to be honest with you. We've seen them time and time again putting incredible performances, but even the likes of Bridgester, Heilmann, Boardman, Verstappen even make mistakes from time to time. And on a track like Brands Hatch, we've said time and time again, it's a one-line track. You're slightly off that line and you are going to be punished, especially around this back section, which you can see both Bridgester and Heilmann coming through now. These next two corners of Wetfield and Sheens are completely blind. I mean, for me, it's just turning the wheel and being like, oh, thank God the curb's still there. Thank God I'm still on the track. One mistake there, as we saw with Redford earlier. And you know, it's costly, and we do think, although we haven't seen it or we might not get a replay of it, Harman does seem to have made that mistake, and it's cost him the lead of the race currently. But the pace, bang on the money. He was a second behind last lap. He's 8/10 behind. He's going to be chasing. He's going to be hungry for this win. He knows it's his to lose. But right now, this is Brecht's championship with Boardman sitting in P5. Philip Brecht is looking like he could be taking this, and maybe Harman goes, look, on the outside chance, Brecht has got the better opportunity for the win. Is he going to sit back into P2 and let Brecht take the championship? We'd like to say yes, but that races, of course not. He wants this win. Matt, what do you think's happened with these top two?
I think, well, it always really sort of depends what's going to happen now for the rest of the race, whether or not Helm's going to have enough pace advantage to keep up towards Breccia. But again, it really depends on how they put their pit stop together. Is Helman maybe going to take the risk and take the extra 5 seconds to get to not take the tyres, or is he going to go and offer an all gamble win and try and get brand new tyres and hope to get the pace advantage? All really depends on how they pit for this lap, because with Brands Hatch, it's only near impossible to overtake unless your opponent makes mistakes. You can see we'll be coming up to Tom Shipston and Graham Lilith as they go and trying to chase each other down, going through into the straight. The Ferrari, it seems to be normally quite good on the straight line, as well as when it gets to tow. It all really sort of depends how he gets on. We're trying to gain on Graham Lilith. Going through the Hawthorne bend, you can see that he just narrows in, tries to think about putting his bumper in towards Graham Lilith, but he just doesn't want to make a costly mistake going through those dingle dells and into Sheens. You can see with both the means of both of them, they are trying to fight out for this P10, which can bag a lot of points. Oh, the Ferrari spins and loses it. It just goes to show to you how easy it is to lose out onto this track once you make that small mistake. But he can still get that time back if his opponents can still keep up. You can see on the replay there, he just absolutely loses on the rear, because you can see with his left tire with the Ferrari. Sorry for both button in there, but he just saw with his tire just dipping in, he just completely loses it onto there.
Yeah, easily to dip a wheel at the top of Dingle Dale, something I've done many a time, and once you do it, the car's so loaded up that the change in transition from the tarmac to the grass, the car is just gone. There's no saving it at all, as we see Grim Lilith coming down the pit lane to make their mandatory stop. Of course, Van Kampen also ticked theirs off, along, of course, with Van der Linde as well, as the lead fight begins to get a little bit spicy here on RCI TV. Of course, Philip Brecht out front, Benjamin Harman there really pushing the limits. There's a little bit of traffic ahead. Of course, what we don't want to see is a friendly fire incident between the two RCI esports cars. We've seen accidents aplenty in this season, and Jesse Lee says he might have to pull the drivers to one side after the race and give them a little talking to, but let's let them play it out for the time being. A big slide from Heilmann in the compression of Paddock Hill, twitches massively. McLaren over the curb into the gravel, manages to get it back underway, but that's certainly going to be a little bit of a scare for Heilmann there, and that's going to lose a little bit of focus towards the back of Brecht's car, and of course Brecht there being able to extend the lead somewhat. But currently on the cards, it's an RCI 1-2-3, as Lawrence has also found his way through Badowski in the number 29. Of course, Lawrence 7.5 seconds back nearly towards this fight, and Tom Shipston has decided to call it a day. Of course, come down the pit lane for his mandatory stop about halfway through the race or so maybe the Pirelli's not too happy after the spin through the top of Dingle Dale. But Les Stevenson, Callum, very well up the order at the moment. The Roca Poker Racing number 46 now onto the back of Yao Manzo in the 222 Randy Pleasemore supercar.
Yeah, John, I'm never taking him bad-mouthing this Brands Hatch track ever again with this current performance. But there are a few people that pitted. He may have gained a few from the pit stops. Obviously, they could be undercutting, putting on a set of boots, and maybe overcut Les in this situation. But yeah, he's looking pacey in that McLaren. He knows he's got the pace. He's just waiting for the mistakes or waiting for the opportunity. Dives up the inside, and he'll be able to run away with it. Topping down on Yao Manzo, we are getting towards the pit window. Is he going to be the first to blink? Both of these pacing down Theobald Roscan. We're going to see some pit stops really shake these things up right really shake things up, sorry, because with the 25 seconds and the optional for tyres, we know here that Brands is difficult for overtaking. So the default is always, you know, we want tyres, we want to feel comfortable, we want to feel safe, we want to have the grip. But on a track here where overtaking isn't so straightforward, as we've seen with these two battling neck and neck through lap by lap now, no matter how close Harman's getting, and we know he's got the pace in the car, maybe you gain the 5 seconds by not, or gain the 5 seconds by not taking tyres, take track position, and just fight tooth and nail, because you know it's not that big of a task here at Brands. I mean, you'll see here with Les getting the run on Manso into Hawthorn, there's not a big enough straight there for him to utilise the slipstream. And as we go into Hawthorns and in through Whitfield and in through Sheens, oh, there's a mistake here from Yao Manso. He's capitalised. I was just saying how bad poor it is to overtake, and we've had a mistake here. Wonderful racing side by side, both leaving each other just enough room. Will it get the move down into Sheens? They're still side by side. I can't believe it as we're about to go into Sterling's. Yao Manso now with the advantage. Les trying to hold the outside, and still side by side. This is absolutely phenomenal racing, both leaving each other a respectable amount of room as we go into Clark Curve. Les gets it done. A wonderful battle there. I was just saying how difficult it is to overtake on Brands, and we've just seen a wonderful overtake for P6. Les up into P6, ready to chase down Roscam. At this stage, he knows he's got a billet clear air. Screw the pit stop, forget everything I've said over the past 30 seconds. Run that McLaren out in the clear air, get the clean space, and next time you come up to a car, then pit. Tyres or not, who knows?
Yeah, certainly it was absolutely brilliant racing, but again, it's sort of like to know where to capitalize on where others make mistakes. As you can see, Heilmann's still trying to gain on Breccia, but it all sort of depends on whether or not he can catch him before the pit stop he has to take. So if I was him, if I'm already making mistakes into this stint, I might be maybe thinking to look into tires. As you can see, Breccia has already gone into the pit lane trying to get his mandatory pit stop done. So it all sort of depends whether or not he takes the tires or he stays out to try and gain that track position. So with that 5 seconds, it can mean a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, 5 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of racing, it certainly is. The majority of the stops tonight under a minute. A couple of drivers electing to take tyres, I believe Grim Lilith being one of them at a 1:01. Richard Withall ran a 1:03. These are rough times from kind of pit in to pit out, so take it with a pinch of salt as we see about Roscam and Yao Manso also coming down the pit lane to take their stop. Of course, Breccia still in the box. We'll update you on their pit stop time very shortly as well. Badowski, of course, has taken their stop there at the kind of head of the field, should we say, of cars that have pitted as Breccia there off the jacks and away towards the 50 board. He will go off the pit limiter, accelerating up. Of course, clear exit for him here at Brands Hatch. Lots of clear air ahead of him. I mean, the next car you can see on the track map just towards the right hand side going through Surtees and setting themselves up, of course, down towards Pilgrim's Drop and Hawthorne Hill. So Breccia now has to turn this into a bit of a hot lapping session to latch onto the back of the next train of cars, and Benjamin Harman blinks in response into the pit lane. He comes very careful. He's overcooked it, just about kept it out of the Armco as he came into pit lane. I actually had a portion in my notes tonight about the Brands Hatch pit entry being very tricky with the chicane. Of course, you come off the Clark Curve at a blistering speed and have to slow down to zigzag through the red bollards, and it's very tricky to do in a GT3 car, of course, transferring weight around that quickly and trying to scrub off speed. That is exactly how it goes when it goes badly. And Andy Boorman also down the pit lane at the moment, with him Ollie Mulder so lots of drivers electing to cut the race in half, shall we say. Of course, provisionally, Martin Lawrence becomes your race leader with, of course, Les Stevenson just behind him. But everybody else has done their mandatory stop, and Philip Breccia, let's see where he comes out in relation to Benjamin Harman. Look to the left-hand side of your screen. There's Harman. Breccia has managed, of course, the overcut or the undercut, should we say, as expected. Big mistake from Harman, Callum. Really didn't help him in a crucial time such as that.
big mistake from Harman, and you do have to probably say that's probably what has lost him the overcut here. He probably thought in that clear air, right, it's Harman time. Yep, I did just say that cringy saying, it's Harman time to get that fast in lap. He knows the McLaren's got the pace, but that mistake into the pit lane has cost him. Looking at the pit stop times, in terms of difference, he was only a second behind actually in pit stop time. So maybe it was a slightly slower pit stop. Maybe it was a slightly slower in lap. But either way, Harman is going to be kicking himself. But he knows now he's got to get it done on the track. He knows he's got the pace of the car. And once again, as we've seen time and time again this season, we have got an outright battle for the lead of this race. What a way to capitalise on the season. What a way to finish this incredible season of the Mini British GT, as Les Stevenson, a heroic effort in the first stint, is coming in for his pit stop. It looks like most pit stops have been roughly the same time. No one really opting for some alternate strategy, with Theobald Roskam actually with the quickest pit stop thus far at 56.5 seconds. So lots of action happening across the field. Harman seems to have dropped a little bit far back actually since coming out of the pits, so that's quite interesting. Lawrence not too far back as well. He's capitalised well on the pit stop. This is starting to spice up here in this second stint of the race, Matt.
Yeah, it certainly has, and as you said, the season has had a lot of highs and certainly has a lot of lows, so it all really depends on how well these top 3 drivers that's currently leading the race get on at the end. You can see Martin Lawrence would have a good advantage if he can catch up with a near 6-second gap. I don't think he's going to be capitalizing much more than that, but it also depends whether or not Hellman is able to get that pace difference up to Bridget. And as we go through to Whithall, he's trying to chase down that position with Grim Lilith. As you can see, he's going around it a little bit more cleaner than Grim Lilith. So it maybe look like that the Audis might start to suffer through the tire as it does towards the end of the stint. As you can see, we're coming around there. The Ferrari's just closing in just a little bit more, but not enough to try and get it. But whether or not he can get him on the slipstream going through Pilgrim's Drop also depends on how well he gets through that.
Richard Whithall, going to be setting his sights onto the back of Grim Lilith's Audi again. He knows where the Audi could be strong and weak. He's been following Yao Manzo, of course, for a considerable amount of time in the early stages of the race before the big off at Paddock Hill that nearly sent Ollie Mulder off with him in a bit of a daydream, probably almost driving to the car ahead. Of course, something we all do from time to time, as Richard Whithall closing the gap ever so slightly to Grim Lilith. Of course, controller driver versus wheel driver. I know Whithall, if he's anything like me, he's going to be very frustrated that Grim is ahead right now, and proving that, of course, you don't need all of the latest hardware to be able to compete at a level inside the RCI community at the moment. And Ferrari certainly looking much stronger on the brakes at the moment. And Jesse Lee spotted something a little bit weird here with Nicholas Gallower and Yao Manzo. It looks like Gallower just very slow off the corner, possibly trying to yield to Yao Manzo. Manzo not quite expecting that, of course, coming through Sterling's at full racing speed, essentially finds himself in the back of a Ferrari, and very tricky. Let's have another angle here from the race replay, this time on board with Yao. You can see Gallower very slow, and I think Yao just expected to maybe be able to get the kind of more turn in off the corner. There's an indicator on from Gallower, and of course that's lost Manzo some time to Mulder behind. That gap now 1.4 seconds to the Aston Martin, and of course the Audi going to be fronting some aero damage there. And if the Audi is anything like the McLaren, Callum, I think you know how sensitive that car can be with aero damage.
Oh yes, I've experienced and felt that pain many times, John. As the pit stops have now calmed down, we have our order set for the second stint of the race. A few things I want to call out. Mike Redford went for the early pit stop and has capitalised beautifully. After that bit of an incident we saw coming out of Sterling's, he dropped down the field, took the early pit stop, and he finds himself back in P7, 6/10 behind Van Kampen, chasing back that P5 he lost before the incident. Les Stevenson, I've checked the pit stop times. It looks like he may be the only one on the field that hasn't taken tyres. He wanted that extra 5 seconds to overcut Roskam, get a little bit of distance between him and Manzo, get that clear air to start chasing down Redford. But you can see by the lap times, Redford is looking quicker at this stage. Les's tyres, especially towards the end of this race, are going to be screaming at him, absolutely screaming. But we've already seen a brilliant first stint from him. I do think he will, with the pace of that McLaren, be able to defend that P8 as we're back on board with the Whittle, one half of the Whittle Wizards. We're still chasing down Grim Lilith. As we said, it's never fun staring at the back of a car, something we've all experienced at Brands Hatch time and time again. But yeah, knowing, oh, we've got, I think that's Gallower off the track, hopefully going to rejoin a bit in a bit of a safe manner. You think he has, he's going to pull over to the right there, let these two battle it out. Very respectable, letting those two go through under blue flags. But yeah, as I was saying, sorry, staring at the back of Grim, never an enjoyable, because he's a control player, and it's slightly it upsets me when he beats me every single race, that he's just like, wow, he's that good on a controller. Do you know anyone else that good on a controller, Matt?
I don't think there ever is, really. I think Grim's just, he's able to find, I think the only person I can think of on top of mind is Max Verstappen. You remember he did a stint, a couple of stints with a controller a few times before, but I can't really remember exactly when. Just having a wee look on to the stewards. So obviously we had the four-way contact between 60, 95, 35 and 69. It was actually put down as a racing incident, which means nobody has got through any penalties on that one. And through that weird incident between the 73 and the 222, the cars giving enough warning due to avoidable contact, as it would be very unpredictable because you would think that you would want to go on the other side of the lane if you're going through blue flags. So it's a bit unusual going through to the racing line on that one.
Yeah, absolutely so. I mean, it's very tricky, isn't it, following another car, especially in the dirty air, as Richard Whittle is figuring out currently with Grim Lilith. Just going to have to kind of pressure Grim into making a mistake, and I'm not sure if Grim particularly will, but the Audi R8 has been looking rather loose down Paddock Hill Bend, so if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be here. And as I say that, exactly happens for Grim. Big slide coming out of Paddock Hill. That sets Richard Whittle up nicely to the inside of Drew's, but we know the outside becomes the inside as they come down Graham Hill towards Graham Hill Bend. Of course, Grim finds himself on the better side of the road, and back through he goes up into P13. Of course, Richard Whittle will remain P14. All the meanwhile, though, Tom Shipston just behind again. We spoke about Tom earlier getting involved in an incident and then spinning himself out at the top of Dingle Dell. He's really hampered his championship chances here, but again, still seeing it through to the end to try and net some championship points along the way. And line of stern back for Richard Whittle and Grim. Callum, it's going to be very tricky for Richard Whittle to get through, but under 20 minutes to go, just about a minute and a half a lap. I mean, there's still considerable lap numbers that Grim has to survive through Paddock Hill, as we see dust being kicked up ahead, as every driver is really pushing the limits at the moment, trying to make the most of the kind of gaps that they've got between each other, but again, trying to drill the laps in to really close that time up and try and find themselves back where they found themselves, of course, in qualifying, maybe a little bit further ahead of where they are now.
You're absolutely right, John. And with the lap times, you know, being around the 123 seconds is currently where Bridgester is currently lapping, with Harman at 122.9. That's faster than his qualifying time. What? You know, and all the way down the field, it's sort of averaging the 124s. It's a short lap time, meaning there are plenty of opportunities, you know, on corners such as Wetfield and Sheaves, where they're so challenging and blind to make those mistakes. But Richard Whittle doing exactly what he needs to do on a track like this, and that's applying pressure, sticking to that rear bumper and waiting for a mistake. And he knows now, with Grim making that mistake into Paddock Hill Bend, he knows now it's possible. He knows that he can force him and apply that pressure to make that mistake again. hopefully this time securing the move into Druids, where Grim out of nowhere had a mammoth slide there trying to get the move, well, trying to make the defense, and still managed to hold the inside for Graham Hill Bend. We have to say a brilliant defense from Grim, but Richard Whittle now knows Grim's susceptible to mistakes, knows he can still make the move into Druids, and he's going to be applying that pressure just as we see Yao Manso applying that pressure on Roskam right now, absolutely glued to the rear end of that Porsche, trying to utilise every inch of road. You see that snap of oversteer just coming on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, and still running line astern. The fight for P9 is heating up, and Redford's going for a move into Sterling's. He's going to get his P6 back, ready to chase for P5, but here we go. Going down the straight into Hawthorne. Can the legs of this Mustang get him alongside into Hawthorne? He's going for the inside, thinks better of it. That's a P6 secured by Mike Redford. A wonderful move, one more position, and he's back up to where he started post that incident. It has to be said, a wonderful race from this man.
Yeah, it certainly has been a great recovery for Redford, and he's still got about 15 minutes to go, so he could get enough time to catch against Andy Boardman. But with the way that Boardman is, he's a very consistent and a very fast driver, so I don't think he's able to capitalize on gaining on him. But you may never know. You can see with Redford's already pulling that gap away from Van Kampen. You can see that even though with the Ford GT's power, it rivals none other than to the McLaren's aero efficiency and how well it can take those corners. So again, it all really comes down to what happens with Mike Redford in the last 15 minutes. As you go back to Manso, he's still trying to get an opportunity to go around through turn 1. But is he going through towards Druids? Do you think we can able to see? Or he's looking at the inside line? Is he able to go? He slightly outbreaks him. Tries to take the inside line, but as you said, once you go on the inside, you're immediately on the outside line. But Manzo seems to completely secure that spot, and that moves him practically up into P9.
Textbook maneuver there from Yao Manzo. Set up Paddock Hill very well. Good run up into Druids, and of course the door left open by Roskam. Probably rear tyres on that Porsche, struggling somewhat with 45 minutes or so on them by this point. Of course, the air temperature is up 1 degree, 22 degrees now, and the track in turn has also gone up 27 degrees overall. Track status, of course, did reach optimum a little while ago, so again, pressures, fingers crossed, everybody has set them very well indeed, and you can already see the gap that Manzo has opened up on Roskam in just a few sectors. Of course, a very short lap here at Brands Hatch as Roskam dips a wheel coming out of Dingledale. Of course, the balance of the Porsche may be able to compete with that change in terrain a little bit better, as we click back here to Chris van der Linde just behind Roskam currently, 5.5 seconds to the good, but behind a fantastic view there. Ollie Mulder going up the inside of Grim Lilith, and a big slide, but very well held from Grim there, and manages to get underneath Mulder somehow on the run to the start finish line. Down Paddock Hill Bend, of course, the last of the late breakers. Mulder around the outside. There's a very tiny gap there. Mulder dips a wheel into the grass. Of course, Whittle behind. That's Richard Whittle in the 957, and Tom Shipston also latching on to the back of this train. You can see him in the back of shot there in the RPMS Ferrari, and suddenly what was a kind of two-man fight between, of course, Grim and Richard Whittle has turned into a four-way fight with Mulder and Shipston involved, Callum.
Yeah, that snuck up on us. We were talking there about Whittle and Grim in that fight, but it seemed they had caught up to Mulder, and Grim, capitalising on a mistake into Clark Curve, sees the up and over opportunity and takes the run into Paddock Hill Bend. A wonderful move from Grim, who's gone for defensive against Whittle, to making a wonderful move, attacking move on Mulder. And now Richard's like, oh, great, I want to get back behind Grim. I want to see the rear of that Audi that I've been staring at. He's going to want a piece of this Aston. It looks like the Aston is making another mistake there. There's two mistakes in one lap. He's now feeling the pressure. He makes another mistake into Sterling. Whittle's going to try to go around the outside into Clark Curve. That's going to be a tough one to stick, as Mulder has the inside line, and he does stick it. But Shipston now poking his nose up the inside. We could be going 3 wide into Paddock Hill there, or Shipston trying to push Whittle along. Whittle making the move down the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. Is he going to make that stick? He's sideways. Mulder's out wide. He's going to make the move into Druids now, capitalising on another mistake from Mulder. Is he going to make it stick? Hold it around the inside. Mulder's going to try and get a better exit to hold it around Graham Hill. It looks like Whittle's got that place secure, but Mulder's... How did they not touch into there? That was so close. Slightly wide for Mulder. Flashing their headlights, maybe not too happy as Shipson's trying to have a look into Surtees. Oh, I'm losing my breath. An unbelievable little short flurry of corners there of racing. Matt, we've been talking all day about how Brands is hard to overtake, but time and time again we are seeing outrageous moves being done.
Yeah, certainly they're just people trying to prove us wrong as always. It's like through previous experience, it's just never a track you never think you would pass anybody. But once again, these people here that are on the track are trying to prove us wrong, and it's just goes to say making those small mistakes can cost you a lot. You saw with Mulder just making those tiny little mistakes. You might not think they might cost you a lot, but as you can see, it's cost him that place with Whittle. You can see with Shipston trying to capitalize again on any of the Mulder's mistakes. You can see he's trying to keep on that toe through the Bradford Straight. If you go through the Paddock Hill Bend, you can see with that Ferrari, it's a little bit more planted than say the Aston. So going through the Druids, I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see a move from Shipston and through to Mulder.
Yeah, the Ferrari 296, of course, built by Oreca on behalf of Ferrari, so drives very similarly to an LMP2 car, almost in corners. It's very, very sticky compared to, of course, the slightly bigger, more road-derived version of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, of course, pre-Evo version in ACC. Fingers crossed, we might even see the Evo version making an appearance very soon, although time will tell on what Kunos, of course, has up their sleeve. Tom Shipston darts out to the inside though, looks towards Hawthorne to see if he can make a move stick, but the overlap and the lunge of the Ferrari just not enough to pull alongside the big grunty V8 of the Vantage. Of course, all the meanwhile though, Richard Whittle just ahead, able to pull out a little bit of a gap to Mulder. Of course, Mulder going to be looking in his mirrors a lot more than he once was. A small mistake there from Shipston, misses the apex over the top of Dingledale. Mulder much tighter, although runs a little bit wide, and again that brings Shipston back into the fight as they begin the drag down towards Surtees and through, of course, Clark curve out onto the start finish straight again. Keep your wheels out of the grass because you're going to hamper your own momentum down into Paddock Hill. Mulder goes defensive to try and break the toe, darts back across the front of Shipston, and once again we're line of stern through Paddock Hill. No change in lead, although Mulder looks like he's running very wide through Paddock Hill. I wonder if Shipston has noticed this, maybe biding his time, seeing if he can push Mulder into a mistake, and a little bit wide through Druids goes Mulder. That allows Shipston to draw alongside very momentarily down towards Graham Hill Bend, dipping wheels left, right and centre. Cars over the curb into the extra AstroTurf. Again, that's another corner at Brands Hatch. You have to be careful on track limits. It's so easy to pick up 3 penalties in the space of a few laps going through Graham Hill Bend, and Shipston tucks back in to Mulder's number 28, of course, Unicorn Shoot Lasers, and a big lunge from Shipston. He's trying to psych out Mulder in the mirrors for sure, trying to make him just dart his eyes away from the windscreen down towards the rear-facing camera in the Aston Martin, and just try and kind of catch him out on one of these corners, make him run a little bit wide, miss an apex, miss a braking point, just something to give Shipston that edge over Mulder. And of course at the front, Philip Brewster, 5.5 seconds to the good on Heilmann this time. That pit stop's really phased the 796 McLaren out of contention. Martin Lawrence, 6.5 seconds nearly back on Heilmann as well. So very famously in the John Dalton zone, and Martin Lawrence equally so. He's managed to pull away from Badowski behind the number 29, hasn't even come through the next timing gate for a gap, and he does just under 6 seconds between himself and Badowski. And of course Boardman, he was coming in here being championship contender, and of course the dominance from the number 25 I think has hampered that dream of the number 69 Greased Weasel Racing entry. 16 seconds off the back of Badowski, and I think, Callum, unless we have a major mistake from any of these top kind of 5 or 6, and certainly this order is locked in as we see Yao Manzo squeezing Les Stevenson, aka the Roca Poker, coming through Druids there. Manzo up the inside, and Triple Two already a second ahead up the road. Manzo, despite the aero damage on the front, on a real big charge there as well.
Yeah, on a real big charge, and one thing we have to remember, those tyres are now punishing Les as Shipson gets the move done on Mulder. It looks like a little mistake into Westfield as we go on board now. Through Hawthorne, line astern, is there going to be a mistake for Mulder? Has Shipson been applying the right amount of pressure? He just misses the apex, runs wide, and Ship opens the door for Shipson. He goes, thank you very much, I will take that, and I'll go now chasing Richard Whittle. A sad, I feel like, you know, Mulder's probably going to be kicking himself. He's made a few mistakes that have led to overtakes today, but it's Brands Hatch. You can't beat yourself too much here. It's a track which really does punish, and the accuracy has to be absolutely on point, but he's definitely going to be kicking himself. There has been a number of mistakes. We ride now with Van Kampen, who after Mike Redford has taken him hasn't let him out of his sights. He goes, okay, you want the place, I'm not going to make it easy. Again, applying that pressure. Half a second behind Redford. We've said it before, the last thing you want to see is a Mustang behind you, knowing the pace.
The Mustang's lost it.
He's off, he's gone, he's made a mistake into Sheens, got a touch wide, and again, we've spoken about it, Brands Hatch punishes you. As we ride on board, we're going to see exactly what happens. Windscreen filled with Mike Redford, maybe just followed the line, goes a touch wide, dips the wheel, and that's it. He's lost the rear end. Good recovery, it has to be said. Done a really good job to keep that out the wall. A phenomenal save, but his tyres are going to be screaming at him now, but he still wants that place back from Redford. But yeah, great save as we go back on board with the leader. I can't believe he's cleared that gap to Harman. We know how strong the McLaren is, and for Brejta to be clearing that by 6 seconds, this has been an absolutely phenomenal drive, who will now be someone who we feel like could be taking the championship today, Matt.
Oh, certainly. He definitely is in the contention to get that result. I think right now the points difference between Boardman and Brejta is only 4 points or 3.5 points, so it's not that much between them. So anything like the fastest lap or even that position could even cost anybody that championship. And I'm just looking at it, I'm reading it completely wrong. I'm reading Boardman and Brejta's difference. But yeah, so I think definitely there's going to be, every point matters when it comes to this, no matter whether you take your fastest lap to get that extra 4 points or whether you take the pole position. It doesn't matter what it is, you have to get every point you can to capitalize it to get on top. But you can see with Heilmann, I think that pit stops just kind of put him off that flow. I think once you start making those little mistakes, you could be making more and more mistakes. You got to then try and take it a little bit slower to try and build up that confidence again. But I don't think Heilmann's able to build that confidence back up to be able to bring him closer to Brejta.
Yeah, as I touched on earlier, I think this race is, I wouldn't say done and dusted, but certainly it is locked in as we currently stand, of course, with the RCI 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Meanwhile, back to the fight that was, of course, Grim Lilith and Richard Whittle has now turned into Richard Whittle and Tom Shipton, and a big wiggle from Whittle there. He has to go defensive, coming up the hill into Druid Shipston the long way around, of course. Shipston has managed to get through Mulder in the number 28, just behind as well. As we catch a race replay here, the big lunge round the outside, just no kind of grip there at all. And of course, Whittle, the shorter line, the tighter line, able to get on the power much earlier than Shipston, draws himself down towards Graham Hill Bend first, and once again it clears the Ferrari. And a typical kind of one make battle on our hands at the moment. Who can hustle the 296 around Brands Hatch the best? Of course, it's very tricky with the kind of set machinery you have. Of course, you have equal weight, equal power, and maybe a slight variance in tire pressures and fuel load, and that's the only real difference you've got over your opponent currently at the moment. So Shipston certainly looking racy. He's managed to get through Mulder, now setting his sights to Richard Whittle, although we have a few laps remaining. Of course, the race time at the top, 2.5 minutes to go. We've got Philip Brejta, of course, just coming through behind these guys on the track map. So certainly going to be another 2 laps or so, I'd say, at least, as Shipston drags wide through Clark Curve. And that's probably the victim of the dirty air right there. And dragging himself nearly off into the grass and gravel. But Shipston, Callum, looking very, very good on the brakes, especially through Paddock Hill.
Well, we have to remember Shipson had a phenomenal qualifying, John. He was right up there in the field, in the mix for the top end here. He has phenomenal pace in that Ferrari, and that mistake that involved him, Redford and Boardman, and you can see on that front splitter, he's still carrying some damage from that incident. Has cost him dearly, but he's got the pace, so this isn't surprising. He's just waiting for that opportunity, and like you said, we've got some manufacturer action. You can't utilize the natural benefits that you have from the car, so you've got to get it done from pure racecraft. It does seem like he's better on the brakes, seems to be quicker on corner entry, but he's just going to be applying that pressure to Richard Whittle and waiting for mistakes. It did seem like on the previous lap he had a far better exit out of Sterling, so maybe he's looking for the run into Clark Curve or sticking behind him and making the run into Paddock Hill Bend. Either way, this position is not done for, and you can see just up ahead as we see dirt splashing up. Grim Lilith is fancying that P11 from Kevin van der Linde. He's still hungry for some final positions as they're all crossing the line for what will be the last 1 or 2 laps. I think there'll be 2 laps left in this race with these guys. They're going to want to get this move done as cleanly and as safely as possible, but it's going to be different. We've got 2 laps left of the mini British GT. They're going to want to get these last few passes, but try their best not to make a mistake, as we've just seen that now. Van der Linde makes a mistake and just lets Grim through. He lets off the throttle and just thinks, you know what, he's quick, he's got the pace right now, I'm going to let him through. Another position gain there from Grim Lilith, but something that may have looked inevitable in these closing laps. I think it's going to be challenging for him to get up to Roscan, but you never know. Brands Hatch, a last minute mistake can happen as we go now on board with the leader, who is coming round on their final lap of the race, the final lap of this mini British GT Championship, a championship which he has been winning a few races, there or thereabouts in a few races, and ultimately going to be taking the championship win. A phenomenal season, as this will be a parade lap, gapping Harman by 7 seconds. A phenomenal second stint for this man, worthy of the mini British GT title.
Certainly is. Yes, no, it certainly is. He's actually been just going through an absolute stellar of a race today. This will be his 3rd win of the race if he can claim it well. As he goes round towards the final corner with Philip Breccia, he goes and safely secures himself not only the win, but also the championship.
Yeah, for the final time in this championship, Philip Breccia will take the checkered flag after 1 hour of pure racing. It was a very clean and consistent stint, and just about got the legs over Benjamin Harman in the 796. And you can see Benjamin Harman's frustration there, driving the car into the wall at Paddock Hill. Straight back to the pit lane for him. Martin Lawrence comes across the line, of course, in P3, and behind him Marco Badowski, a stellar drive, a great qualifying performance. Unfortunately, the Lamborghini in race trim just not able to do it, but we've still got battles ongoing as everybody's crossing the line. Shipston trying to make the position up on Whittle at the moment. The 957 just ahead there. Shipston hassling the back down Dingledale. Up the other side they go for the final time through Sheen curve towards Sterling's. Is Shipston going to be close enough? He's trying the outside line. The cambered, of course, inside of Sterling's gives Whittle a much better run off of the corner under the bridge towards Clearways they go, braking for Clark Kerr for the final time. It's going to be a run to the line for Richard Whittle and Tom Shipston, but I think Whittle has done just enough here, as you can see the Ferrari tucked in behind of Tom Shipston. That was a fantastic race to the checkered flag, and Richard Whittle did very well to absorb the pressure from the charging Ferrari of Tom Shipston. And of course, race results on your screen, pending any further stewards' inquiries that may be going on, but I think everything has been closed off at the moment. and it was Philip Bridgestone. You can see him just in the top right-hand side of the screen behind the pit menu, actually doing some celebratory donuts underneath the start gantry, taking overall winning and, in theory, the championship title as well. Here he goes, Jesse Lee catching it very well indeed. Benjamin Harmon comes through in second place, Martin Lawrence in third, and Badowski in fourth. Andy Boardman, unfortunately, the Mustang just not having the pace here tonight, and that's evident with them sprinkled down through the field. Mike Redford, great recovery drive back up into P6, and Stephen Van Kampen for the 35 in P7. Yao Manzo, again, a very good kind of comeback drive after getting involved in a few incidents along the way. P8, Les Stevenson, all the way from the back of the field up to P9. That's a stellar drive from the number 46. And Theobald Roskam will round out your top 10 in the Porsche. Of course, holding on to the rear tyres just about on that one. Grim Lilith, again, P11 from the back of the grid. That's a very honourable mention. Kevin van der Linden. Yes, Kevin van der Linden, not Kelvin, catching me out there. The 527 coming through in P12. Richard Whittle, P13. Tom Shipston, P14. Oliver Mulder in P15. Kenneth Dow creeping up the rear there in the number 420. Trevor Byford, despite the early on calamities, in P17. And Galloway will be the last car to take the checkered flag. Unfortunately, Berry and Whittle, of course, big contact, and Foster did not make the checkered flag. And what a fantastic final round we've had here tonight, Callum. It's been limited on numbers from what we saw, of course, on the early stages of the race, and of course on the screen at the moment the final championship standings, and exactly as we thought, Callum, Philip Bridgestone taking the honours here tonight.
Yeah, but a rightful win and a worthy champion here for the Mini British GT. I can't help but, be elated for Philip Bridgestone. Phenomenal season. If we go all the way back to Alton Park, he had an incident in the first or second race, I can't remember, but he's clawed back. He hasn't got the most wins. That would probably sit with Boardman or Harman or Verstappen, but he's got there. He's he's secured solid performances and taken the first place in the checkered flag when it mattered. But as happy as I am for Bridgestone, I'm also ultimately a little bit sad. It's over. The Minish British GT is done, and what a championship it's been, John and Matt. It's been incredible to be in the box with you, John, and Matt, having you here for this last race, joining us. It's been a phenomenal season that has given us absolutely everything. Matt, how have you enjoyed your first experience in the box and witnessing a incredible race that we had today?
Oh, I agree. It's been an absolutely fantastic race, and yeah, I'm quite happy to do my first stint here as a commentator. Never really done anything like this before, but as Jeff says to me, I'm actually fired from this job. So thank you very much, everybody.
Matthew Malcolm downing headsets there for a very brief period as Jesse Lee fires him in our ears. It's brilliant to have all the banter and all the comedy up here in the box. But of course, the main talking point tonight, Philip Bridgestone takes away the Mini British GT Championship from Andy Boardman. Benjamin Harmon also in close contention as well. Again, we spoke about it earlier. He could have been a bit of a dark horse coming into this round. Christopher Schreppen, of course, not with us tonight, finishes on 272.5 points. Again, could have been championship contention between Verstappen and Bridgestone. What a fight that would have been towards the end, especially with Harman mixed in there as well. Martin Lawrence clawing back a top 5. I think he's had a bit of a late sign up to the championship, and memory serves me correctly. Marco Badowski just behind him with 230 points. Yao Manzo in a charging Audi R8, 218.5 points. Tom Shipston, the first of the Ferraris, with 208. Grim Lilith, the second of the Audis, just behind, 192.5. And Emo Plate just about secures the top 10 with 186.5 points. And that is not a glitch. That is a double Dutch flag we do have at the bottom of the standings board. And, of course, we've got plenty more drivers to go through tonight on the points. Carlos Calatayud, again, what could have been a fantastic season. Ted Edwards just doing enough to pit Mike Redford again to P12. What could have been there? Richard Phillips just ahead of Stephen Van Kampen, and Matt Stevens tied on points as well. Les Stevenson just behind those guys. Theobald Roskam and Bruno Teixeira and Richard Whittle rounding out on a tie for essentially P19 overall. So I think we're going to see a few more ties as we get down towards the bottom end of the field. Of course, drivers not showing up for the final round, and of course other drivers doing exactly that. Kenneth Dow just about pips Nicole Fox. Nicholas Gallower beats Kevin Boss. Martin Foster ahead of Ibiza Racer. Ollie Mulder just not enough to jump the 8:08 in standings. Chris van der Linde, it's not Kevin at all. We're getting completely mixed up here with 38 points. Trevor Byford just behind them with 24.5. And Keith Whittle, unfortunately, luck not on his side tonight. An early drama saw him retire from the race on 16 points. Sam Berry, unfortunately, not scoring as well, getting involved with Whittle in said incident, and Ferrelli not attending the final round. Every single other driver has signed out, and of course will take no further part in scoring or championship honours. And what a season it was. 61 drivers attempted the stab at this, and one man prevailed to take the honours. Philip Brewster, congratulations, my friend. You are the Mini British GT champion. 7 rounds into the season. How does it feel?
Hello everyone. It's amazing. It's like, yeah, I have no words because it was pretty tough championship. Chris and the boardman did such a nice job through the championship. Every single race was pretty tough with them, and I think I'm winner. I'm happy. I can't say any word against some things about Andy and Chris because they did amazing job, and also they deserved that victory.
So I think I can hear the smile when you speak, Philip. It was a great season by yourself, proving exactly why probably you're on the RCI esports roster as well. So congratulations from me. Callum, again, there's a few more of us in the box tonight. Callum, any questions from you to Philip?
Just the one, obviously a massive congratulations on an incredible season and an absolutely dominant final race there. At what point in the season did you sort of fancy this, and ultimately at what point today was it you came into this final race today knowing that you could chase and get this, or were you just willing to accept, you know, what came your way in terms of the race, or was this something you really chased for all season long?
I think this race was the key race, I would say, because I done so much practice for this race. I did some like 200 laps maybe. Car was perfectly prepared, that was amazing, and I think this race was the main point that I won this championship.
Well, it was no mean feat. It looked like Holman had the race covered in that Macca, especially in the qualifying and in the first stint. It looked like his pace couldn't be matched today, but that second stint from you just looked absolutely unbelievable. To clear that McLaren by 7 seconds, I can't do anything but just to sort of sit here in awe. It was an incredible second stint and one worthy of the championship, which you deservingly won. Matt, do you have anything for Brescia at all?
Well, first I want to congratulate you on the championship. Just the question I've got is how do you keep the cool level-headedness and the consistency from like round 3? You've won 3 races, and from round 3 to this one here, including today, along taking your 2 extra podiums at Snetterton and Donington Park. Just how do you keep that consistency when you've got that much pressure on the championship on you?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm just racing race by race, and I'm just racing, and I'm trying to enjoy every single race. We have nice team with Chris and Martin Lawrence, and Benjamin, of course. So we are supporting each other and challenging each other. So I think that's the point why am I so cold through every race. Of course, I did some mistakes like on Snetterton, which nearly cost me the championship. But yeah, everything worked well.
Yeah, it's all good to hear. But once again, congratulations on getting that championship.
Thank you so much.
Philip, congratulations indeed. We're going to let you get off, of course, have a few beers or two and celebrate definitely on this one. Well done once again from myself and, of course, everybody in the box tonight.
Yeah, thank you. See ya, guys.
Philip Brewster, the Mini British GT Championship champion, everybody. Very good drive all round from everybody involved in this championship. It's certainly been one I have enjoyed, and I know my partner Callum Kerrigan and I'm sure Matthew Malcolm alongside for one round tonight has enjoyed the spectacle that has been put on by all the drivers here at RCI. And of course, none of it would be possible without the drivers entering, and of course, without the guys that watch at home. Of course, whether you're lurking, you watch back, you watch along with us, or you're just kind of around for the sport. We appreciate each and every one of you, and it has, of course, enabled us to continue our journey here with the RCI project, and hopefully many more things to come. Of course, if you do want to get involved with us here at RCI in any racing action, you can do so. Head on over to the website racerci.com, where of course we do have a sign up currently available to you. Of course, it's the 6-hour series making a comeback with an esports and a community leg once again. Of course, featuring 6 rounds, 48 teams, limited tyre sets, custom BOP, and of course an €8,000 prize pool. That's for the esports leg. This will be one that you do not want to miss on RCI TV. And equally, the community leg will also feature prizes for the first time ever in RCI history, thanks to our title sponsor, IMB Racewear. The top 3 placed teams are going to be getting their hands on some prizes, and additionally, we'll be giving away one £20 IMB Racewear gift card per race to a lucky team across any split, and that gives you 6 chances to win, regardless of what split you are in. The only criteria being that you must finish the race, so it pays to stick around in the 6-hour series for sure. Of course, heading over to the website, check that one out. That's racerci.com. And remember, down below, you can find links to all of our social medias, be it Discord, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, where you can find, of course, all the exciting stuff that goes on behind the scenes at RCI. And on our screens there, catching how the lead change happened. We did miss that in the broadcast. So Harmon running wide and Bridgester essentially being gifted the win by the time the checker flag went down. Of course, a big thank you to our partners. They've also been revolving around in the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Of course, AK Esports, a top provider of premium esports services and equipment. And of course, also providing us our server solutions here at RCI. A big thank you to those guys. Go Setups, of course, does what it says on the tin, provides expertly crafted car setups tailored to help you get the most out of your racing experience, whether it be Assetto Corsa or, of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione. Be sure to check them out down below. And, of course, a new partner for us here this year, Moser Racing, who we are thrilled to partner with, a leader in high-quality sim racing gear, from precision-engineered steering wheels to durable pedals and, of course, advanced wheel bases. Moser Racing has everything you need to boost your racing experience, and be sure to support our community by using our affiliate link to get your hands on these fantastic products. And of course, a quick mention to Motorsports UK Esports, where we have recently become a recommended community as well. So a fantastic feat on the RCI card. But a big thank you once again to you guys at home. It is unfortunately the final round tonight, so keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel for our next event. We thank each and every one of you, and of course from myself, John Dalton, from Callum Kerrigan alongside me, and of course Matthew Malcolm alongside me for one last time. I'm going to butcher Callum's name, but we thank each and every one of you. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we hope to catch you once again here on RCI TV. Take care.